Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And it's time once again
to recommend stuff.
Hey Vince!
What?
What do you recommend today?
Today, I'm kind of jazzed about what I'm recommending.
Does that require jazz hands?
Up until 2 weeks ago, I didn't know this thing existed.
Okay.
I was super jazzed when I found out about this.
Because, you know, I took a glance at this and I was like, he's all excited. I don't know what I'm looking at, and that doesn't look English.
Frazetta. It's an artist's
okay.
signature. Granted, it's not like it's written on here, but that's what he signs his stuff as. Frazetta, Frank Frazetta, Painting with Fire. It's a documentary about his life. And what's really interesting to me about this is I became familiar with the name Frazetta not because he's a major thing in the art community, but more just because I saw his covers on Conan books and thought it was really cool. That's, of course, Conan on the cover.
It sounds like an Italian bread.
Frazetta. Covered with Parmesan and garlic.
Sounds really good right now. I could go for some Frazetta.
Let's go get some Frazetta. We'll be right back. But what's really jazz hands? What's really neat about this, or at least for me, is that I came into contact with Frazetta's work because of just randomly seeing it around. And until I found this documentary, I didn't realize it was a major thing. I didn't realize he was as famous as he is. I knew he was fairly prolific because he has a lot of work out there. But I'll say this: he's not just in the art community. He has more work produced for the like science fiction book covers, fantasy covers, things of that kind. And the thing, of course, he's most famous for is Conan. And he's worked in comics. He's worked in all sorts of stuff. Check out the documentary. But I don't need to outline it for you. But I was super jazzed by everybody that they had in here. And in one room, they had these three men talking to each other. And when they saw that, my jaw dropped. Or when I saw that, my jaw dropped. Anyway, it was Bernie Wrightson, the artist from Swamp Thing, the early stuff. Mike Kaluta, who did the stuff for The Shadow back in the 70s. I believe it was the 70s. And Dave Stevens, Rocketeer creator.
Yeah.
All in one room talking to each other. And Neil Adams was in there.
Wow.
It's really neat.
That is really cool.
Oh my goodness. And they had some people that I didn't recognize. They had some other people who I did recognize. They had people that he worked on with, worked on movies with, yada yada. Frazetta was a really interesting guy. He was extremely active. And I think that maybe his his activity, his high activity, gave him a little more awareness of the human anatomy and what he, like these ridiculously muscled characters. Granted,
that's interesting.
Yeah, granted, he's not like a huge guy himself, but in his younger days, he was a fairly lean guy. He liked sports a lot. And
the idea of somebody that actually goes out and does a lot of physical activity, drawing people, it would influence it, and it'd be different than, fat guys that sit at their desk all day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Hemingway writing things that are kind of high adventure. He had a life that had high adventure in it.
Yeah, really interesting.
It was, here's a guy who's extremely physical and draws or paints extremely physical things. Now, what's interesting about Frazetta is that I think about halfway into the documentary, they tell you that this thing, the thing that he's super famous for now, is not the thing that he considers home, not the thing that he considers his what he enjoys doing. He likes doing those cartoony, goofy things. And he's really good at it. He's really good at everything he tried to do. It's interesting that, I'll say this. One of the things that I found really endearing about him is that he is not a guy who had like drug addictions and was horrible to his family. No, he was a good guy. They eventually talk about a dark period in his life where he had extreme depression issues and how that affected his life. But overall, he's just this ecstatic, interesting, good guy who's out there just trying to enjoy life, and who has created a body of work because of it. And it's catching. It's really interesting to say, or to get the energy off of everybody who talks about Frazetta, the people who he's influenced through his art, the people who he's influenced just being in their lives. It's really interesting. I think it's fun to hear what his kids have to say, because they're kind of like, yep, he's my dad, and he's ball energy, and he exhausts me. It's really funny to me.
You don't see a lot of documentaries about just an artist like that.
Yeah.
It's really unusual. There's a few here and there of the really big ones, and I think that he probably ought to be considered a bigger deal than he is now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you figure?
There's a guy in this video who has a lot of good things to say about Frazetta as an artist. And he has this sort of tone when he talks about Frazetta, because he is an actual art, like, museum type of man. I forget what he did.
Oh,
but
okay, interesting.
he's into high art, and he talks about Frazetta having artistic talent.
Now, did he do any of that kind of stuff? Did Frazetta, because just the way you were describing earlier, I was sort of wondering, especially because of the whole, like, the title of the thing is like his own signature and stuff. That's a very, like, highfalutin art kind of thing to do. Like did he do anything that wasn't just comics?
He did a lot of what he's really famous for are the covers, and of course the covers can. Excuse me. Of course the covers can stand on their own.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because it's not like you paint the text on there, but and that's
for those of you that were wondering.
do they paint the text? Do they really put that thing on the back of the painting that says what the book's about? You flip it over, it's right there. Oh, that's what Conan's about.
It's part of the art.
They make them freehand all of that. It's amazing how many straight lines they get.
Yeah, the letter artist doesn't always get a credit.
But I don't know how much he did. They didn't really focus on it, and my assumption is that he didn't do much, if he did any. So he does have, or at least at the time this was made, he does have a gallery in Pennsylvania, which is really cool, and they showed the opening of the gallery. And I would like to go there at some point, provided it's still open. This thing isn't terrifically old. I think it's only 2004.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's when this was released, or at least this was pressed. But
well, that means they probably got a lot of interviews from some guys that passed. So that's really good.
Dave Stevens isn't alive anymore. So
yeah, I didn't know that.
That's really sad to me. Or at least I'm pretty sure he's gone. Anyway, I highly recommend this. I think it's lots of fun. I think it's really interesting, and I'll admit that I did have a little bit of a personal interest in this, and I was just glad to see that this guy that I thought was really talented, it's not just me, apparently. And what's kind of sad about that is that I've never heard anybody talk about Frazetta at all, except for this, and then I find this, and he's a huge thing. It's just beyond me how I've never heard anybody else just fawn over the guy's name.
I'd like to watch that.
I think you'd get a kick out of it. I think you would. I do. So I'm recommending it. Anyway, what are you recommending today, Cap?
I only show up for recommend so that I can, hear Vince's recommend,
So he goes, can I borrow that?
Then I do mine real quick, or I'm like, here's this thing at the end. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch this.
Set up the DVD recorder player.
Today I'd like to recommend something I got recently in the mail from Dan's News. Thanks again, Dan from Dan's News, for sending this to me. Dan sent me a housewarming present, which was the Dark Knight Trilogy script book. Wow, so cool of him to do that. And I flipped through this and read the introduction, which is a conversation and interview with Nolan and I want to say Christopher Nolan and his brother both, and then and Goyer. I think was there too. So Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan, and Goyer, and that's all really fascinating because they talk about the three films at the same time, which is something you don't always get. And so like just all these questions back and forth, like the jump from Dark Knight to Begins to Rises, and just kind of all over the place. And it's really fun to hear them talk about them as as one thing, and kind of where they were in their head when they made each of them, and how Ledger's death affected where they decided to go with Rises and all that kind of stuff. So it was really quite fascinating. I kind of recommend script books in general, but I want to recommend this one specifically because it's kind of relevant for right now because Rises is coming out on DVD pretty soon and stuff, and and something else that's in this one I should mention is also there are some storyboards here and there of various scenes. So you've got the storyboard of like the truck that flips over in Dark Knight, and like the part where the Joker tries to get Batman to hit him and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of neat. I forget what the one was for Rises. It was kind of neat. I don't remember now. What was it? Oh, it was the airplane scene at the beginning. They put that in there. Because and that makes a lot of sense because that's like the scene that people seem to talk the most about with that movie, just as far as cinematography and putting it together and how complicated it was. So that's kind of neat. But anyway, script books in general, because you get a lot out of a story that was made into a movie by reading the script. And I know that sounds really silly, but being a writer, I've done this a lot. Actually gone back and looked at, if not read all the way through, kind of skimmed through screenplays to get a sense of what it looked like on the page versus how the actor interpreted dialogue. And it's very fascinating. If you can read a script and take yourself as far out as possible from the movie, and if it's a movie you know really well, it's not easy to do, of course, because you're going to hear that guy's voice while reading the dialogue, but it's kind of interesting to try to, as much as you can, get a sense of what it looked like before they filmed it and what the choices were. So, I know, I'm talking, this is the Nolan films, but I've also read the script for Batman '89, and if you read the Joker's dialogue and you try to not think about Nicholson while you're reading that, I don't know if you've looked at it.
Yeah.
It reads like a mid-'80s Batman comic, I mean, he made some really interesting choices with how he decided to deliver some of that dialogue. And some of it doesn't really feel like it was written for Nicholson. Some of it feels like it's comic book Joker. And there are just some choices where, it almost goes in a different direction. It's all the same words, but just looking at them, it's very different than hearing them and watching what happens on the screen. So anyway, I think it's a very interesting exercise. And when I see films now, because I've done this so much, I kind of see words while I listen to dialogue sometimes, where I like to kind of go in my head and think, okay, what did that look like on paper versus how they're saying it now, and how would another actor maybe have said it differently? How would maybe I have said it differently? That kind of thing. I think it's also a really good exercise if you're interested in doing any screenwriting yourself, or you want to see how it's done, because people get this false idea that everything is in a script that goes on screen. That it's just not true. That all the cinematography, all those kinds of choices, all the camera angles, that stuff's not in a script. And in fact, what you want, what's very important in a script is that you actually have a lot of white space. People don't realize this, but you actually, to do it correctly, you actually are supposed to, and I've taken a screenwriting course, you actually are supposed to make all of your stage directions.
We've also taken a playwriting course.
A couple of playwriting courses. You took 3.
That's true.
But you're supposed to. I was like, what more are you going to get out of that class? And it's like, I don't know.
Another script.
If you're writing a script with the directions of what actually happened on screen, you actually want to make those as concise as possible and put only the most important things and leave the rest of it up to the director. You need to get a bit of a sense of what a person is supposed to look like, just so that they cast it right and they use the right props and stuff. But for the most part, most of those directions are 2-3 lines long, a couple of sentences. Is all that it is, and then you get into it.
Often directors will feel stifled if you have too many directions in there and say, well, what am I supposed to do? Read the script to the actors?
What do you need me for? Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to just have dialogue and not have any of that, because you have to set your scene. But really, a lot of your scene setting, not even kidding, is interior, night, office building, go, and then after that, it's just such and such walks into a room, he goes over to the refrigerator and he gets himself a brewski, and then you go, you roll.
You said brewski.
Yeah, I said it for your benefit because I thought you might appreciate that.
Yes, of course you can bring the brewskis.
Anyway, where was I going with all this? 1 minute of film is 1 page.
Indeed.
And, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. If you put too much on a page, then it no longer is that way. Approximately, yeah. And so you can kind of see that with this. You can kind of see, okay, a shooting script. This is all they have to work with to make such a very complicated film. It's very interesting how that works. And so I don't know. This book I think is only $10, $12 on Amazon, 15, I forget. But not too expensive at all. And
which is it in the stores?
35. But I saw it recently online for less than that.
Amazon has really good deals.
Yeah, or at least the last deal I saw on it. I just wanted to look it up before this so that I could tell you what it would cost if you wanted to go get it. And if you buy this, you're not just getting the scripts, you're also getting the storyboards, and you're getting a really fascinating interview at the beginning. So anyway, that's what I recommend this week. Check it out.
Something in this that's not in the movies. Pages.
Ah, true, yes. Oh, well, no, there are some pages in the movies, right? Because in Rises, Gordon has that that piece of paper where the speech,
tangible pages.
Excuse me. Oh, okay,
pages that are able to be tanged.
Anyway.
Moving on.
Well, that's what I recommend this week, and we'll see you next time on Recommends. We'll recommend something else for you next week. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Vince.
We'll see you later.